Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Places We'll Go show. Another tremendous guest today. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So, Emma Harris. Emma, I've known you a little while, and you're a remarkable person, let me say, straight out the gate. In fact, I was at a talk you did, I don't know, was that about 5-6 weeks ago?
Yes.
Where you absolutely blew the doors off. So I'm extremely excited. And I think you describe yourself as a powerhouse of energy and drive. And I definitely 100% can vouch for that. I'm just going to do a tiny bit of history for those who don't know you well. So Emma was an account manager for Bass Breweries back in the day. That was sort of at the outset. And then over a decade at Eurostar, sales and marketing director. That must have been fun. I'm sure there's some stories there. Bit of time in consultancy, then to Virgin, and then moved to be CMO of the social element before becoming CEO of the Glow for the last decade or so. And a brief headline of Glow London, for those who aren't aware, it's a brand engagement agency that builds real brands and then brings them to life by connecting them into culture and experience. But to describe you by your role would probably be ridiculous because you've done so many other things as well. You're a non-exec for K2 Performance Systems for nearly 16 years, I believe. Trustee of the Marketing Academy Foundation, mentor and supporter of the Marketing Academy Scholarship. Great friends with the mighty Sherilyn Sheckle. I was with Sherilyn last night for the 10-year anniversary of the Marketing Academy Fellowship. Wonderful. You've won Campaign 40 over 40, Female Frontier Mentor of the Year. You're a mum of 4. You've had an incredibly colourful and successful life. And most recently, of course, you started the Slow the Fuck Down movement. We did have a bit of a conversation in the green room about swearing, and it was a bit trickier to avoid it, given when we're going to talk about Slow the Fuck Down. Which actually I'm going to keep my powder dry, and I don't want to talk to that because that will come in its fullness. But suffice to say, you had a moment that we can all draw lessons from. And I'm excited to hear that sort of jaw to the floor moment again. Also, more generally, fabulous to have you on the show, Emma.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh, Emma, welcome. How you doing? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little bit dulcet, I can hear. I'm a little bit Friday morning, Thursday night. Thursday night with indulgence. I was out. We were. I did a few things actually. I met. Having been a mentor for the Marketing Academy, I tend to keep my mentorees quite close. So I went and had a drink with a couple of mentorees, and then I met a client/friend who works out in Gibraltar, who was in town, and we always get a bit overexcited. And went to Le Garrick in Covent Garden and had, one of those Thursday night incidents, which involved a bit of tequila. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not feeling 100% on form, but it's great to be here. And it's Friday.
It's Friday. We'll find out about the balance of how you have your tequila moments, but you slow the fuck down. That will
exactly.
That will all come in time because I know there is. So you mentioned the Marketing Academy. I mentioned the Marketing Academy. It was so lovely to see Sherilyn last night, resplendent in the wake of 10 years for the fellowship. Just let's get started with, what's the Marketing Academy and Sherilyn been to you over the years? Because I know it's been a big thing.
It's such a big part of my life and my history. I mean, being a client at Eurostar, so when I left Eurostar in 2012, it's a really strange thing. And Mark, I'm sure you can identify with this. When you're, Emma Harris from Eurostar, for 10 years, you've got agencies clambering all over you, everyone wants a piece of you, and then you jump out, and my whole thing was, right, I'll jump and the net will catch me. I didn't really have a plan. And actually I was pregnant with my first child, and didn't know whether I was going to be an earth mother or throw a nanny at her. So kind of thought, well, I'll consult for a bit and see what happens. And there were a couple of people that really sort of, how I see it, sort of kept me at the table, and Sherilyn was definitely one of them. She made sure I was invited to staff, she kept me in. The network that I built through the Marketing Academy, what I've learned through mentoring all those incredible young people, and just, having that role in seeing people's development, people's journeys. And, I'll be at a party or an event and someone will come up to me and say, I heard you speak 5 years ago and you changed my life. I mean, that is just, no great day in the office is ever going to give you the joy that something like that gives you. So for me, and this is interesting because it's actually where my career, if you like, is kind of migrating towards, it's all about the people. And even when I first met Sherilyn, I've been at Eurostar running sales and marketing for a while. She said she actually came to try and poach me interview for another job. Can't remember what it was. And she says to me, "You're very people-y for a marketeer." I think most marketeers will sit there talking about, performance and drivers and levers. And I was just talking about my team and my people and the journey we'd all been on and this massive change. And, I led the change when we moved from Waterloo to St Pancras, which was massive. And totally busted me out of my little commercial princess bubble where I was travelling around the world drinking lots of champagne. And I was doing night shifts at the depot to get under the skin of what was really going on for the engineers. And it was an amazing 18 months and taught me a lot. But yeah, I think in answer to your very long answer to your question, but the Marketing Academy is kind of part of my DNA now. I'm actually hosting the boot camp in the States in February, which I'm very excited about. Sherilyn's often said if I go under a bus, just phone Emma and give it to her, which I find an incredible honour because she's formidable.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm sure very well placed there to say that. Emma, you said something. You said so many things in that segment, but the one thing I wanna latch on to is when you said, I took a jump and thought the net would catch me. And I think there'll be many people either looking to take a jump, either nervous about doing it, or maybe have just taken that leap. And I wonder if you can reflect on that experience a little bit, and perhaps what advice, guidance would you either give to yourself back in those shoes or someone else who is currently thinking about or has just done that?
It's a great question. And, the answer to this question is kind of the answer to one of my, the way I live my life, which is, I believe genuinely you can have anything you want in life. The key is knowing what it is you want and believing you can have it. And those two things in equal measure, because there's no point in me saying, right, tomorrow I'd like to become a catwalk model. I'm 51 and a size 20. So I think that ship has sailed. But, in reality, if there is stuff that in my life I genuinely believe I can achieve, it's about setting your belief. And this is something I've been talking about for years, the power of manifestation. I think manifestation has been given a bit of a dirty sort of reputation because people think, it's just airy, fairy, hippie old manifest and it will come. But the science behind it is real. And actually, when you set your belief, and there are many ways to do that, but by setting your belief and believing that you can have something, what you're doing is you're almost programming your neural pathways to go out and get that. The unconscious mind is an incredible thing. 95% of our behavior is unconscious. So by setting, there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. And it's the part of your brain which is the filter which chooses what bit of the millions of bits of information we're receiving every second. It's the bit of your brain that will trigger when you're in a room full of people and someone calls your name. It knows to listen because that's your name. So what you're doing by setting your belief with things like visualization and, vision boards and setting outcomes and all the things we can do to program that sat-nav is you're programming your RAS to notice the things you want, notice the opportunities you want. So when, for example, this lovely house I'm very proud to be sat in, in 2018, I did a vision board that had a house so incredibly similar to this. And I bought this house in 2021. And so when I went, it wasn't magic that when I came to see this house, I said, this is the one. And I fought very hard to get it. I'm self-employed. My husband's an actor. So it took a long time to get a mortgage. I went to bore you with the drama of it. And Daddy kept saying, look, just let it go back on the market. And I was like, it's my house. I'm living in it. I've decorated it. I've parked in the drive. I've taken the kids to school. But, it's my house. And, it became my house. It's not magic. Manifestation is not magic. Your belief is the thing that will influence how you feel. So, for example, if you believe you're going to do well in an interview or a meeting or a situation, if you set that belief of the end of that meeting, coming out knowing you've done brilliantly, you going into it, your belief is the thing that will drive your feelings. So it will improve your confidence, which will influence your behavior, which is unconscious. So it needs to be set by a feeling, which will influence your outcome. So my advice to anyone is know what it is that you want and keep focusing on, creating that belief for yourself. in as many ways as you can.
One,
Really anything's possible. My life doesn't even make sense. When I really decided, right, I'm going to do this thing, I had a tough time working in a business where the culture was fairly toxic. And when I came out of there, I was like, right, I know what I'm doing. I want to set up an agency where I work with brilliant people and travel and have an office and have a team. But I don't want to really be stressed out by leasing a big building, and I don't want to have to spend loads of money traveling, and I don't want to be lying awake at night by paying people's mortgages. So I sort of almost, if you'd have put that down on paper, it would have made sense. But it's exactly what I have. So forget the how, just to know what it is that you want.
Love it. Love it.
I just want to very quickly, I love the thought process around manifestation, but just interestingly, the way that you framed it around belief into feelings, into confidence, into changing behaviors, and into outcomes, I think is a wonderful, almost value chain of how you get from manifestation into action. And I just want to reiterate that as part of this. So there's a wonderful framing of that.
Yeah, because it's not magic. I think that's the thing. I really, how I live my life. Even me and the kids are going somewhere, we manifest the parking space. It's just in every tiny moment. Rather than go into a situation stressed, relax yourself, focus on the end point, keep focusing on that, and allow your unconscious mind to deliver it.
Love it. And it's my house. So I said powerhouse of energy and drive, and add to that belief and determination. So Emma, what makes you you? Where does this come from?
Oh gosh, I mean, probably many, many things. We're all a big bundle of all our experiences, aren't we? But my mum was a powerhouse. So my mum was a North London Jew, grew up in Ealing, big ambitions to be an actor, which is interesting. I've ended up marrying one, to be a performer, and went to Arts Ed in Tring. And when she was 16, was told her parents couldn't afford to keep her there anymore and she had to come out and be a secretary. So she was a frustrated actress, very big personality, hostess with the mostess, massive alpha female, really true, just any party she had, everyone adored Mum. And my dad was like the cat that got the cream. East End boy, left school at 14, met her on New Year's Eve at the Empire of Leicester Square and couldn't believe that he'd married her, and just genuinely followed her around as if, she wore the trousers is an understatement. And then when I was 12, she got a thing called viral encephalitis, which is a virus that lands on your brain. And literally overnight, she went from being this incredibly, beautiful, confident, powerhouse to being somebody with a short-term memory malfunction. So, and never recovered. So for the next 30 years, she was somebody who you'd have a conversation with and 5 minutes later she'd forgot. And she had a lot of her long-term memory was present. So she'd kind of, come up with memories from when we were kids. But so Dad became her carer, and at 12, I became a grown-up, I suppose. And my coping mechanism was to be mummy, to say to Dad, let's go shopping. I'll cook dinner. Oh, I think we need to sort that out, Dad. And so I suppose, my brother, I'm the youngest of three. My brother was sort of 17 at the time. He was busy being a teenager. My sister was 14. She locked herself in a room, and I filled the space. And I do think, even though obviously it's quite a big trauma in our lives, it's really been the making of me. So I do think a lot of that comes from my mum. She was, obviously a lot of my memories of her being very fragile and ill, but for my formative years, she was amazing. And it's helped me in terms of, God, the whole gender politics is an enormous topic in itself. But Sherilyn and I have always said, and I know there are some other women who I work with, and I always feel slightly disloyal by saying this, but I have never felt that my gender has been a disadvantage in my career. I've never walked in a room and felt like I need to seek permission, or being a woman means I'm not being taken seriously. And I was at Eurostar, I was the highest paid senior manager, and I was a woman, obviously. I once worked on a project for Virgin Management for 10 months, and someone said to me, what's it like being the only girl in the team? And genuinely my head sort of whipped round the room. And I said I hadn't noticed. I might be a combination of mum, dad sort of following her around. And also I grew up at Whitehall Lane. I was a mental Spurs fan, still am. 86, 87, I didn't miss a game home or away. And I think when you grow up on the terraces, you learn to cope with the boys. And so I think there's some of the experiences that have shaped me.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. It's great to hear some of those adversities turned into, I guess, opportunity in that sense.
I'm good at that.
I suspect so. I want to come on to talk about, of course, your movement that has been pivotal across the industry for the last number of years, which is, of course, slow the fuck down. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, I know it may well be sensitive as to how you reached that point. But I think it'd be really helpful for our listeners to maybe have a little bit of context around it. And then, of course, what is the inspiration and the vision behind what you've created in that movement?
Yeah, well, it all started last May. So talking about, from adversity come good things. I was on business in New York the week before I'd been in Chicago. And as you mentioned, I've got 4 children. My husband is an actor. He was filming in Barcelona. So I was in Chicago, then flew home for like 36 hours to see the kids, which is a nutty thing to do, because the sensible thing to do would have just avoided 2 extra transatlantic flights, gone straight to New York, flew back to New York on the Sunday, week full of board meetings. And, because I knew I was traveling a lot, eating out a lot, staying up late, lots of cocktails. I was getting up early in the morning. I was running. I'm someone who, as I mentioned, I'm a size 20, but I've always taken my health very seriously. I eat very clean. I do exercise 3 or 4 times a week at least. So it was a busy week, up early in the morning, let out late at night. And then on the Friday, I'd got up, funny enough, done a HIIT class in my hotel room, but I only know that. I don't remember any of this because someone had knocked on my door. And apparently I was just in a sports pair of pants and sweating, which was probably a memory she hopes to never repeat. And we went for brunch, and I stood up to go to the toilet, slid apparently gracefully down the back of a chair, and went into cardiac arrest with absolutely no warning whatsoever. I mean, there's a selfie I took of my 3 minutes before this happened where I look completely normal. And I've been saying all week I'm tired. I'm actually really tired. When I get back, I'm going to take it easy. Anyway, I had a thing called ventricular fibrillation, which is the same thing Christian Eriksen had when he collapsed on the Euros. And it's a part of my heart. One of the ventricles went into a sort of electric pulses that goes so quick your heart can't pump. And 90% of people who have a cardiac arrest outside of hospital die. And thank God I didn't make it to the loo, otherwise I would have. But I happened to be in a room where, the people I was with, which was Tamara Littleton, who runs the social element, and Lynn Frost, who's the MD, and the various other members of the leadership team, sort of shouted, "Is there anyone can help us? Is there a doctor here?" And 3 people were having brunch in that restaurant with doctors. Stood up, came over, gave me CPR, got my heart going again. And then an ambulance came in 7 minutes, which also apparently is unheard of in New York. My heart stopped again in the ambulance. They defibbed me, flatline, defibbed again, and my heart started again. And there were some very heavy moments for the guys that were all there with me, watching people come out of the ambulance, shaking their heads as if she's not going to make it. I mean, the general narrative at that time was she's got a lot going on. We don't think she's going to make it. They had to phone my husband to ask that horrible question, had we got health insurance? Which thankfully we did. My business did, because it was a $500,000 bill. But yeah, I ended up 8 days in ICU, 8 days waiting in a apartment in New York to come home. And they basically cauterized part of my heart that was misfiring and have fitted a defibrillator and sent me on my way. And sort of day 2 in the hospital, left alone with my phone at sort of 2 in the morning. I'm always someone, I mean, Mark, you've been following me for ages, but you'll see, when my dog passed away, I've talked about miscarriages. I'm always someone who's very quick to not just share the positives on social, but share the realities of life so other people realise they're not alone. So I posted this picture of myself with, oxygen mask up my nose saying, here I am, mum of 4, running 2 businesses, rep at school, on the PTA, always the first with my hand out. And here I am. Don't be me. And everywhere I look, there are people talking about burnout and exhausting themselves. And while we're all running around like busy fools, let's slow the fuck down. This hashtag slow the fuck down. And it was a stupid thing to do, really, because my kids didn't know I was ill. And obviously, there's lots of parents at school that are connected with me on LinkedIn. A lot of my clients didn't know I was ill. I mean, it had all been kept under sort of an embargo till they knew I was immune clear. And there I'd done, I exploded it into the world. And it just went, and as Sherilyn says, it broke LinkedIn, because within hours, it had been shared thousands of times with people saying, this is me, I'm reading about my life. And I had 10,000 comments of people sharing their stories, a guy talking about his being on his way to a pitch and knowing he was having a heart attack, going through with the pitch and then asking the suit on the way out, can you please take me to A&E, I'm having a heart attack. I mean, women saying, I've just read your post and I'm crying because I can see I'm heading the same way. It was just an outpouring of love from all over the world, and 9 million views it reached. I think it's still growing. And to put that into context, when you're a judge on these marketing awards, you see sort of, a good post will get out, 150,000 views, and this was 9 million. And that was the thing that really started it. It made me realise, God, there's a lot of, this is a problem. This is the epidemic that we're in. And for years, I have been talking about, in my years at Eurostar, I said my people obsession meant I'd done a lot of work. I'm an NLP practitioner, being that you talked about Planet K2 in my intro. Planet K2 are human performance experts who take all of the knowledge about performance in sport and apply it to business. And I've obviously been working with them for many years, so I have a lot of knowledge and understanding about well-being and mental and emotional choices. So over the years, I've gathered all this experience and understanding about human performance and the human experience. So for years, I have been talking to people about the choices they make in their life. But I realised, I woke up and thought, what the fuck have I been doing? I'm a hairdresser with bad hair who's telling everyone else to make more meaningful choices in their life and not doing it myself, not putting my kids first, not putting my health first. And I started talking about it and, putting it into a bit of a formula of the 3 big things that I've learned since my recovery, which, by the way, has been incredible. I mean, I'm healthier than I've ever been. Apparently, my heart is that of a 20-year-old. They still don't really know what happened. So the general advice is just moderate everything. So I only have 1 coffee a day. I do exercise, but I don't run anymore. I do more weight training, and I've got a dog now, so I walk a lot. And I just don't go crazy. I won't do more than 2 nights out in a week. It's just about everything. My cardiologist said to me, don't be a cardiac cripple. Get on with your fabulous life. Just be sensible. So the 3 big things I've learned, which is sort of the backbone of the slow the fuck down movement, is, make better choices. 95% of our behaviour being unconscious, a lot of the time we're making decisions based on an unconscious, path that we're not really mindful of. And those thoughts and feelings we have don't actually exist. And that's not to say I negate people's feelings, but thoughts and feelings are not real. They're not tangible. You can't touch them. And making decisions based on often what is a catastrophizing in our heads. You often use the example of the school run. You see parents all over London in the morning just tearing through traffic or running down the road to get their kids to school. And you can imagine the stress that's having on their minds and their bodies. But because in my head, I always have this image of my 6-year-old having to, walk through the office and all the people in the office frowning, bad parents, and then him sort of crying on his way to the classroom and the teacher going, you're late. And, and the government intervening in our bad pattern. You know, actually all that happens is he's got to sign his name, and then once a year or once a term, you get a report with one number on as how many lays. And that's it. Yet in your head, you create this drama. And it's the same as, you know, I have to go to that event. If I don't go to that event, there might be the biggest business deal in the world and I'll miss it. Or, you know, if I leave the bar now, Take That might walk in and I'll miss meeting them. You know, we create the stories we tell ourselves, which aren't true, but often we don't interrupt our thinking to say, actually, what's the evidence here? Have Take That published in the newspaper they are about to walk into this bar? No. Go home. You know, do you know that this is going to happen? No. I mean, I coach lots of people as well, as you know, and I coached a woman recently, very senior woman, who I tried to get her to leave her phone at home and go for a walk because she was feeling quite stressed. And she was like, I can't do that. And I said, okay, let's follow the thought path of what you think might happen. And I eventually got her to connect with this fear of someone will phone me. They'll think because if I don't answer, I'm, you know, skiving. They'll think I'm flaky. My reputation will be damaged. I'll lose my job. I'll lose my house. I'll die on the street. And of course, when you say it like that, it sounds mad. But often those thoughts are there. We're just not really hearing them, but we're still behaving as a result of them. That belief drives your feelings, drives your behavior. That if your unconscious belief is something really bad will happen if I don't do this, then you do it. And so that first pillar of make better choices is just think about what really matters, which usually is your family, is yourself, your health, love, purpose, the planet, you know, your friends, your family. And then think about what you're spending your time doing. And often the thing we're spending most of our time doing is unconsciously to protect the thing we love, because we're panicking. If I don't go to that extra meeting, if I don't work all weekend, somehow my children won't get fed. And actually, when you unlock yourself from that fear and ground yourself in the present and make decisions based on evidence, not thoughts and feelings, you can live a more meaningful life. So that make better choices is sort of the biggest first piece. And then the second piece is about paying attention. And we talk about, you know, a lot of the learnings from the athlete at work principles of, you know, a lot of business people just rock up to work and use the calendar or their to-do list as how they formulate their day. Whereas an athlete will always focus on the mental and obviously the physical and the contextual and the emotional elements of their day. And I talk a lot about checking in with yourself and, again, visual manifestation and setting outcomes rather than stressing, and making sure you've got all the right tools and that you're giving yourself the best opportunity to perform, and paying attention to your body, you know, the importance of sleep, the importance of downtime. You know, athletes don't train 7 days a week. The importance of boundaries and drinking water and not eating processed food, and paying attention when you're tired. Because particularly our generation, we used to wear it as a badge of honour. I got norovirus, but I'm in the office, you know. And that's probably the one good thing that's come out of COVID, which is that, you know, it's a bit out of order to go to work when you're ill. But it's not cool. Pay attention. If your body's telling you that you need to rest. And then the last one is all about having conversations. And it's a combination of, for individuals, talk about your struggles, share your struggles. And for organisations, it's about saying, make sure you're creating that genuinely, you know, safe psychological space where people feel they can, you know, these are all cliches, but, you know, show up with themselves, bring themselves to work and talk about whether it's a struggle or just their life. You know, if you're really leaving at 5 o'clock to go and pick up your kids, tell everyone, you know, make that norm. If you're struggling, share it, and give people permission to do the same. So those are kind of 3 pillars. There's a lot more in that that I could talk about, particularly around the control of your thoughts and listening to your voices and identifying who those voices are and their positive intention, and then learning to sort of pass the mic to a different one in a moment. But yeah, so that's what the movement's about. It's about helping people sort of stop the madness and make better choices.
stop the madness. So many things you said there, Emma, are so incredibly resonant, on trend, in vogue, easy to say, hard to do, all of that. I mean, you're so worldly wise for your experiences and your practice. And I think through all that, it's clear that learning and progress are so important. So given that you know so much, you've learned so much, I'm curious to know, what are you still learning?
I mean, every day I'm learning how to be a better person. I'm learning how to be a better parent. I mean, God, there's one thing that doesn't come with a rule book, right? I get stuff wrong every day. And I think that's part of the really important thing, is just having a moment to stop at the end of each day and go, what went well? What could I have done differently? Not beating yourself up, but had an incident this week. My daughter's started secondary school and all the politics that come with that, the new challenges. And there was an incident with another kid, and I had a call from a parent, which obviously I was mortified. And I think I projected some of my mortification onto her. So rather than going to her and listening what happened, I went in like a bit of a ton of bricks. So didn't do that well. So next time, learn to do it better. I think every day you're learning them. God, the minute you stop learning, what's the point, right? And I'm also love listening to podcasts. This week I've been listening to Alan Watts. I don't know if you've heard of Alan Watts. He was actually a 1960s author. I mean, he's written some incredible essays. Something I learned this week, and this blew my mind, that humans invented the straight line. There's no straight lines in nature. It's a human thing. And we invented straight lines to create order. But actually nature is wiggly, is how he says it. And I don't know why that's blown my mind. I know it's something you've never really thought about, but humans invented the straight line, and we are surrounded by straight lines. Everything around us is straight.
Yeah.
Whereas nature is wiggly, and actually wouldn't we rather live in a slightly wiggly world? And recognizing that we don't have to conform to all the straight lines.
How wonderful. Wonderful anecdote. Really wonderful.
Isn't it? So I think, just having that curiosity is something I'm always encouraging my kids. I think, when you meet children that lose that curiosity in this age of digital where everything's served at you, I think that's incredibly sad. So there is a lot more to learn. Every day, how to be, I don't know if better person sounds a bit too much pressure, but how to move forward in a way that enables you to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and not be crippled by the voices that tell you you're not good enough, as most of us have.
We do. We certainly do. And actually related to that, Emma, when you were describing the circumstances with which led to your condition, you described them as traveling, going out eating well, cocktails, exercise, New York, Chicago, planes, and all the rest of it. All those aspects would certainly be the hallmarks of what we would term certainly a professional, successful life. And I think it comes down to what you said about the voices in your head and perceptions of what success truly is. And I just wonder, genuinely, have we got this all wrong? And you used the term busy idiot. And I just wonder if, post these moments and your 3-step formula, as it were, whether you've got any reflections about how you perceive success today versus perhaps how you've done so in the past.
I absolutely have. And it's probably one of the biggest changes that's happened to me, because I had this relentless pursuit of growth and success and attached it to, I suppose you could say, status. I don't know if you read The Status Game, but it talks about this sort of quest that we're all on to connect our identity into this sort of environment in a sort of very meaningless way. And, I was obsessed with the growth of my business. I was obsessed with winning awards. I was obsessed with winning pitches and, would drag the team through all sorts of, unrealistic, incredible hurdles to try and win a bit of business. I can't even remember what I meant now. We had a meeting this week, and one of the questions Sheem said is, what's our what's our ambition for turnover for 2024? And my answer was, oh my God, I don't care. And I really mean that. And it isn't that I'm not still ambitious. It's just the lens I'm looking through now is, if we are all feeling fulfilled and we can all have a great life and have enough money to have a great life, and we're doing good work and we're waking up in the morning and having great days, that's what I want next year to look like. And wouldn't it be great if we had enough cash in the bank that we could do something like go to Amsterdam for Christmas, or, have a great away day and spend money like that without thinking about it. But let's not kill ourselves in the process. And that's been the big change. And it's something my 22-year-old son, who works at Publicis, interestingly, and, he's like, everyone I work with that earns loads more than me, they're always moaning they don't earn enough. And I explained to him that's because the more you earn, air expands to fill the available space. So the more you earn, the bigger mortgage you get and the bigger car you get. Because in our lives, we always have this thing of, when I get that job, when I earn that money, when I get that house, I'll be happy. When I'm thin enough, when my lashes are good enough, whatever it is, then I'll be happy. So we put happiness as the thing in front of us. And funny enough, when you get there, then the happiness pushes itself away again, and you're on this constant quest. And I said to my son, I said, Blue, the quest is for self-acceptance. The quest in life, if you can be happy and fulfilled, you can live in a garden shed. If you can find a way to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, I'm okay, actually, I like myself, and I'm okay, and I'm full of gratitude. It doesn't matter how much money you have or what car you drive or what house you live in. And I think that's, for me, been the biggest change. Don't get me wrong, it's still not, my husband will listen to this and go, yeah, she still likes buying handbags, but it doesn't, I don't connect my happiness into the aforementioned handbag. I genuinely, the smell of my little boy's hair. This morning he got into bed with me and I had a cuddle. That's joy. That beats anything. And the more people can just recognize that thing of, oh yes, I'm putting my happiness in front of me. Let's pull it in. Let's pull that happiness in now. That's living your life. And I think when you come up close and personal with a Grim Reaper the way I have, it's hard not to live like that.
Thank you.
So profound. So many of the things you said. I want to pick. You said the smell of your little boy's hair. I'm just going to loop back to that. I think what you just talked about, Emma, is how we let our ego dominate ourselves, and I suppose it's the reality that everybody has an ego. It's what makes us human. And granted, there are small, medium, large, and extra large egos in the world, but we all need it stroking. But I guess it is a choice about what you define as fueling and stroking your ego. So this is the last question. It's gone by in a whiz, but what else gives you joy? The smell of your little boy's hair. What else?
Spurs being top of the league is definitely one of them. What else? I mean, changing people's lives. I was at a conference last week. It was in Gibraltar. It was run by Entain, who one of our clients, and I was asked to come and talk about helping women take control in their lives, and I did a lot of the talking I've done today. And I was absolutely blown away by. I've had women messaging me all week because what I do, I talk about, give them tools, not to take control of their thoughts. So the thing I alluded to before which is the voices in our heads, that 4:00 in the morning voice saying, you're a piece of shit, you're not good enough, everything's going to collapse. It's connecting with, first of all, that's a thought, it's not real. The minute you disassociate with that thought, it's like putting a pin in a balloon. I don't know if you ever read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, but that we spend most of our lives either in the past, in a world that we can't change, or worrying about a future that hasn't happened. And the power of actually grounding yourself into the present, it's a bit like taking yourself out, thoughts, feelings into evidence. And just first of all, recognizing, it's just a thought, I don't need to think that, is so powerful. And secondly, making friends with those different voices, because we do have a negative critical voice. I call my mum, because my incredible Jewish mother, you know, despite her memory problem, always found a way to remind me what I was failing at, and part of her powerhouse persona. And then I've also got a cheerleader, and I've got a risk manager who's got a clipboard and, you know, running around the house unconsciously worrying about all the things that are about to collapse. And I have kick-ass who gets shit done and doesn't see the no, and who my husband doesn't always love. And I've got people pleaser who's great on a night out and always says yes to everyone. And it's about the control comes from connecting with all of them, understanding what their positive intention is, and recognizing who to pass the mic to in a particular situation. And so I shared this, you know, process with these women last week, and seeing it, we went for drinks afterwards, just people come up to me like tears in their eyes. And I had a call with one of them yesterday, and she said, "You've completely changed how I feel. You've given me such a gift of empowerment for my own mind." That's where I get joy. That is, like I said at the beginning, you know, nothing feels as good as that. No pitch you can win is as good as someone saying you changed my life. So, you know, it's feeling the love, which is abundant in our world. Sometimes you can watch too much news and feel like it's all negative. But, you know, we're incredible beings, and being able to help other beings be more incredible, that's where the love is. That's where the joy is.
Emma, thank you. That's such a wonderful way to end our segment here. It's been such an incredibly rich and inspiring conversation. I'm just going to pull out a couple of key themes that have certainly resonated with me as a bit of a recap. So I think, first of all, of course, big shout out to Sherilyn. I loved the fact that she was part of and has been and plays a real pivotal role in your journey. And I love the phrase that you used early on, which was, "She kept me at the table." And I really think that's just wonderful. And she's a wonderful, wonderful person. Your faith and belief in your own abilities to jump off the corporate ladder and go your own way, as it were, remarkable. But the framing around that, you know, jump and the net will catch me, was the phrase you used. And your rationale for that being a sense of, like you said, manifestation, but even beyond, setting your beliefs, your mindset, your conscious, unconscious mind, and filtering out, you know, your vision for the future, super, super powerful in getting what you want, including the home you're sitting in right now. I love the chain of events that trigger from that manifestation: belief, feelings, confidence, behavior, and then outcomes. And you do that in the biggest things, as well as manifesting a car parking space when you take your kids out. So there you go. You can have it in all aspects of your life. Of course, you know, a lot of inspiration from your mum and the way that she looked after you in your adolescent years. And then turning some of those other moments from moments of adversity and seeing the opportunity and positive side in what was happening to her. I love the fact that you're a Spurs fan. Just shows that it's not just triggered in, you know, it's many other aspects of your life that you get happiness from. Top of the league table, maybe. But really key to this whole thing, of course, is the episode that happened to you, and, you know, the movement around slow the fuck down. But the perception of success has really turned 360 in my mind, about how you view things and how you view success, and not necessarily going after growth at all costs. In fact, you know, what is growth is probably a big question here. And, you know, going on a trip with your team to Amsterdam at Christmas, if there is that ability to do so, probably gives you a great amount of joy than other aspects that you thought were successful earlier on. I'm just going to recap very quickly the formula. So making better choices, you know, creating the stories that we tell ourselves, and really kind of catching yourself out between the difference between what we make up in our minds and actually really digging for the evidence is really important. Paying attention, very much like an athlete, mental, physical, emotional, being very in tune with your body and the boundaries that your body tells you that you need to set. And then finally, having the conversation and being willing to both share the struggles with others as well as the small things as well, telling people that you're going home to pick up your kids and what that means. So really share that around. Some of your last moments around, I love the phrase, air expands to fill available spaces. And actually, it's just a quest for self-acceptance at the end of the day. And I think that was great. But we ended very much on the note around the framing of success beyond anything materialistic, although you like your handbags, into actually wanting to change people's lives and the impact that we all can have in any which way we try to genuinely make a difference to others. And I think that's true mark of your insight and learning. And I think, a key takeaway that I'm going to reflect on after. So, Emma, I hope I've done you justice. It's just been phenomenal, powerful to have you on today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Emma.
Had a great summary. I love hearing all that.
What's not to love? Thank you again, Emma.